Hello class, this is your teacher, Mr. McDougall, with your next Photoshop tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to do a cool neon light effect, like the example you see right here. So I'm going to give you some exercise files that look like this, regular exercise files, and then we're going to add this cool neon light around the subjects. So as always, download your exercise files for today and get them open in Photoshop. So pause this video if you haven't done that already, so you can get ready to go. We're going to work with 3 exercise files today. We're going to do the same effect on all 3 of them, but let me show you this first one on this guy with the cool orange jacket. So let's begin. So first thing we're going to do is use our brush. We're not going to actually use the brush just yet, but we will eventually, but we need to preset the brush before we get going. So click on your brush tool, just the regular brush tool, to make sure you're not using the history brush or adjustment brush, just brush. And make sure that it's on the regular brush. Right now it's still on the spatter brush from a couple lessons ago, so make sure yours is not like that. Yours is on the regular brush. So if we click up here on the drop down for the brush settings, for the brush types, you don't want the spatter brush. We want to come back up here to general brushes, and we want the soft round or the hard round. I'm going to click hard round because we want to make sure that the hardness is at 100%. If you click soft round, that's fine, but then just make sure 100% hardness for this effect, okay? And then we can click away to close that menu. So we also want to make sure that our brush is really small. So I'm going to use my bracket shortcuts to make my brush size smaller. For this first part, we want the brush size to be about the size of the pupil of the subject's eye. So maybe right about there. That's roughly the size of their eye. That's pretty good. We're going to have a nice thin brush for this first part, and then we're going to have a thicker brush later. Lastly, we want to make sure that our colors are reset to black and white, and that white is our foreground color. So click on the little black and white icon to reset them, and make sure this is white. So click this arrow to make sure white is the foreground color. So now our brush is preset for the next step. So for this particular effect, we're not going to do any duplicating or smart objects. But we are going to edit non-destructively on separate layers. The neon is going to be on its own layer. So in order to do that, come back down here and click on this create a new layer tab. It's a little button right here. So we have layer 1, which is a blank layer with the checkerboard pattern. That's how we know it's blank and nothing is on it. So now our brush is set, but we're going to go to a new tool called the pen tool right here, or P is the shortcut. It looks like the little tip of a pen head right there. So click on pen. And this one, we don't need to click and hold. It's similar to some of the other tools where you just click and connect the dots. So what we're going to do with the pen tool is on our new layer right here, we are going to just draw a shape around the subject. So you could draw whatever shape you want. You could do a rectangle or a triangle or a pentagram or pentagon, whatever shape you would like to use. But you just need to click once. So I'm going to click like this, and then I'm going to come over here and click again. And you just need to do single clicks and it will connect the dots for you. Whatever your shape is, make sure you click back on the original dot and that will close the shape. Make sure you draw it where it crosses the body a couple of times. Make sure it goes across the subject's face and then across their body. Don't have it go over their head or anything like that. Make sure you draw it where it crosses their body at least twice. Now we have our path. When you first use the pen tool, I didn't mention this, but by default, it should be on path. If you drew it and yours was a full shape for some reason, come up here and make sure it's not on shape. We want it to be on path right here. It should be that by default, but in case it fills with a color, that means it's set to shape. So just Command Z and try it again. All right, so now that we have the path on its own layer, which is this one, we're going to come over here and add a couple of effects to this. So the first thing we need to do is fill the path with our brush. So on the image, right click on the image, and you're going to choose stroke path right here. Remember, a stroke is a border, so we're going to add a border around the path. So click stroke path, and what will happen is this will pop up right here. It's going to ask you what tool do we want to use to stroke the path. Yours might be on pencil by default, but we're going to set it to brush. So change it to brush. This is why we set the settings earlier, because we're going to do this effect right here. So once you set it to brush, click OK. And now it filled the path with our brush settings, which was a thin white brush, which is why it looks just like this. Perfect. If you don't like it, if you did it incorrectly, or you didn't change your brush settings, or you think your brush is too thick or it doesn't work, then you can Command Z and change your brush settings. So if I don't like it, I can hit Command Z. I can go back to my brush, maybe change the size or something if I want, and then go back to your pen and do it again. One more time, stroke path with the brush. There we go. So you can always change that if you need. Just Command Z, change your brush settings, and try it one more time. But make sure that this is on its own layer. We did this on the new blank layer. You don't want to do this on the original background. So now that we're on here, we are going to add a couple of effects to this. So we're going to open up the effects menu by going to FX right here. And the first one we're going to add is color overlay. So come right here to color overlay. We're going to add this one. And then yours might be gray. Yours is probably set to gray or something like that, which is fine. We're just going to change the color. So where it says color overlay, click up here in this square to choose your color and choose a fun bright neon color of some kind. Maybe like a bright green or a bright blue or a bright red, something like that. Something that's a bright color because we want that bright neon glow to it. I'm going to go with like a bright neon green. I think that looks cool. So I'm going to click OK. The next thing we're going to add to it, move this out of the way just for a second, is an inner glow. Click on inner glow. And the inner glow, we're going to change that to white. We're just going to add a couple of settings right here. So inner glow, click on this square. And this one we're going to make it white. Bring this all the way up to white so it glows white from the inside. And make sure that the source is set to center. Yours might be on edge by default. Change it to center. The choke, we're going to bring this down to 0. And we're just going to mess with the size slider right here. So if you set the size at 0, you'll see that it's pretty white. We're just going to make it a little bit bigger, just a tad. And you'll see what starts to happen is it's got this white glow from the middle, and then the edges are your neon color. So we're making like this white neon tube right here. And we can increase the opacity, the noise. Noise and opacity don't matter too much. What's more important is that it's white and the size of it right here and the choke. Okay, perfect. And then the last thing we're going to add to this is an outer glow right here. So we're going to pick outer glow, and we want to pick the same neon color that we did. So we're going to click here and we're going to pick the same neon color. Remember, if you don't remember exactly what color you went with, you can copy the hex code, just like we did back in the mood board. So if I go back to color overlay, go back here to color overlay, go back up to this neon color that we picked, and every single color in the whole world has this neon or this hex code right here, which is this 6-digit code. So find this code that you picked, right click and copy it, or Command C, and then we're going to go paste that on the outer glow. So go back to outer glow, come back up to the color, and then right here I'm going to hit Command V to paste, and now I have that exact same green color, or whichever color you decided to go with. And you can mess around with the spread, the size, all that stuff. We just add a slight outer glow. We don't need to make it like a giant one like this. We're going to add that in a second. So just make a fairly small, soft outer glow, kind of like that. Perfect. And the blending mode, you can change. I would set it to linear dodge. So change the blending mode up here. You could leave it on normal, but another cool one is linear dodge. I would pick one of those two right there. I'm going to go with linear dodge. And that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to click OK. Now we are going to repeat the process, except we're going to change our brush settings and we're going to add another new layer. So let's click a new layer one more time. So we have layer number 2. So we're going to add another brush layer to this one. So let's go back to our brush. And this one, we are going to make it bigger. We're going to make it a little bit bigger. So we can add a bigger glow to it. We're going to set the softness or the hardness to 0. So it's a very soft brush. So take the hardness, put it all the way down to 0. So it's very soft. And then set your foreground color to your same neon color again. So instead of white, I'm going to come here and I'm going to paste my code again right there. So I have the exact same neon green that I had before. And now we're going to use the pen to stroke the path again. So go back to your pen and come back to the picture, right click, stroke path. You might see one that says stroke subpath. If you see that, click on that instead. For some reason, it doesn't always pop up, but you should see stroke path or stroke subpath, either one. Click OK. We're going to use the brush again and click OK. So now we're looking pretty good. The last thing we need to do for this is to change the blending mode again. So on this layer, let's double click, come up to blending mode where it says normal, and let's change it to linear dodge again. And then click OK. I don't think I like the linear dodge for this layer, so I want to change that. So this one, let's go back to the outer glow. Any of these effects, you can double click on it and change it. If you want to change your color, you can change the color, that's fine. But for my outer glow, I'm going to set it back to normal. Looks better. There we go. And then I think inner glow, I also want to change this to linear dodge. There we go. That's looking better. But feel free to mess around. You do want to see the white tube, and you can change the blending mode and the opacity of all of these till you can see your bright neon color. There we go. It's looking good. All right, I'm liking that so far. So now we don't need this blue path anymore. So this blue path is it's not going to be in the final image, but it's just showing where we can trace things around. But now that we've created our two neon groups, we no longer need this path. So go to paths, and you'll see it says work path right here, which is the shape that you drew. And you can either click the delete button on your keyboard or just drag this layer and drop it into the trash can. So now we just want to see the white tube with the neon glow. So now let's go back to layers. And now back on our layers panel, we're going to group these two layers together. This is our original white tube neon right here, and then this is our other brush one right here. So to select both of them, remember to click one of the layers, hold shift and click the other, and now I have both of them selected, and we're going to put them into a group. So to put them into a group, there's two ways. You can click this little folder icon that says create a group. So if you click that, it groups them into here. I didn't merge them like we did in a previous assignment. They're just in a group. So I can open this up and see that both layers are still there intact. Or the shortcut is Command G when you have both of them selected. So this group, I'm going to rename it to neon. So I know that's the neon group with all my neon layers. All right, so my neon's in its own group. I'm going to hide this layer for just a second. So this group layer, I'm just going to hide it and turn it off. And we're going to select the subject for our next step. So in order to select the subject, we're going to use the quick selection tool and make sure that you have the background layer selected. If I try to use the quick selection tool now, it's not going to do anything because there's no layer here. So click on background and then you can select him. And it's a pretty clear cutout, so the other trick you can use is the one I showed you in the previous lesson, which is this select subject button right here. So if you click select subject, it will automatically detect him since he's a very obvious subject. So you can click on that, and we're going to add a layer mask to this layer. So don't do anything on this layer. We just needed this layer to select him. Now go back to the neon layer, turn the neon layer back on, and we're going to click add a layer mask right here. Click add a layer mask, and that will do this effect. So now we've masked out the subject on this neon layer. However, we want it to be behind him. So the way we invert our mask is with Command I on the keyboard. So hold Command I, and that will invert the mask so the neon effect is behind him. All right, almost there, a couple steps left. Now what we're going to do is click on the mask because we're going to brush the mask so it comes through the front of him right here. So click on this black and white mask that you have. Let's go back to our brush tool. Make sure on brush, make sure the foreground is set to white to bring the neon light forward. And let's check our brush. This one you can have a soft or hard brush, it's up to you. And then the size will also depend on the size of your tube that you're brushing. So now I'm just going to brush right here to bring this part forward. So I'm just going to brush right here. So just brush one area so the tube comes forward so it looks like it's in front of him. So now it looks like it's going around his body. It looks like it goes behind his head and then comes back and goes in front of his shoulder right here. Awesome. Now we're looking really cool. All right, last couple steps to really add more color, because right now it looks cool, however, it's not emitting any light. He still looks exactly the same, it just looks like there's a tube around him, but we should see some light. So in order to do that, we are going to add an adjustment layer. So come down here to your adjustment layers, this little half circle, or this one, the adjustment layer tab, whichever one you'd like to do. And we're going to add the black and white adjustment right here. So black and white adjustment, that should put it on the very top layer right here. And we're going to click tint, and then change the tint color again to your same neon color. So if I Command V to paste, now I have this cool neon green as my color. Click OK. So now the whole picture is glowing with that neon green color. But I still want to adjust the other colors underneath. So all these colors are still present. This pink, magenta, the orange in his jacket, all of those colors are still there. So we did this a long time ago with adjustment layers, but I can take those colors and I can still mess with them. So I can take down the reds and the yellows, making it look like dark, this cool cyberpunk look right here. So I can still mess with these. Good. Not so much blue or purple in this one, mostly oranges. So if I turn that down, it gives it this really cool dark cyberpunk look with the sunglasses, which I'm digging. All right, so final step. Last step is we're going to add one more new layer. So create a new layer one more time. Make sure it's on the very top. And this one we're going to brush with a different color. So now on this final layer, come back to your brush. Make sure you're on brush. Make sure it's fairly large. We're going to make a pretty big brush like this. And make sure that the hardness is at 0. 0 hardness for this one. For this one, I want you to choose an opposite color of the neon color that you picked. So what I mean by that, if you picked a cool color, like I picked green, if you picked a cool color like green, blue, or purple, then for this next step, pick a warm color like red, orange, or yellow. And vice versa. If your neon color is a warm color like red, orange, or yellow, then for this next step, use a cool color like green, blue, or purple. So I'm going to go with orange for me. So I have an opposite color. So if you, again, use cool color the first time, then use a warm color now, and vice versa. So now what we're going to do on this one is we're going to click around the edges a little bit. A couple clicks around the edge, not a lot, just little spots like that. Just kind of going around the sides. There we go. That looks cool. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to change the blending mode of this layer, and you can change it to whatever you want. So double click on this layer and adjust where it says blending mode right here, where it says normal. Change it to something else. You can see as you scroll through the blending modes, each one will have a different effect. And yours will look entirely different depending on the colors that you chose and the brush size and all that stuff. So yours may not look exactly like mine. But pick a color that you think looks cool. Create this cool cyberpunk look. That one looks pretty cool. Different colors. Pin light, linear light, vivid. Kind of like the hard light or the vivid light. I'm going to go with the linear light. I like that one. But feel free to pick whatever color you want. And then click OK. So now we have the neon color, which is emitting light towards his face. And we made it dark, like his sunglasses got all dark. And then we have this cool contrasting color around the outside to just give it this more spacey fantasy look. So that's it. That is the neon effect. So do the same thing on the other two exercise files. Practice with different neon colors and different shapes for each one, but all of the steps will be exactly the same as we just did right here. So all you need to do to remember is go back and rewind this video to the same steps. All the steps are also written down right here on the instructions, but complete all 3 exercise files, take screenshots of each, and turn them into this assignment. So I can't wait to see your cool neon effect. Have fun, and let me know if you have any questions.